welcome. It's Dr. Sarah Larsen and Greg Larsen, your miracle makers at the Conscious Life Expo. Welcome, miracle makers. You will not believe what we have in store for you today. We've got Nassim Haramein in studio with us here in LAX. Welcome, Nassim.
Oh, thank you for having me again. It's great to be here. It's great to see you guys.
It is great for us too. I'm going to be grinning from ear to ear. It's incredible that the work that you're doing is getting recognized over and over again. Last night here at Conscious Life Expo, you won the Einstein Award.
Yeah, for achievement in science.
For the achievement in science. I would just love for you to share a little bit about what it's like to begin to recognize the scope. You've been working on the understanding the universe, the smallest particles and the largest particles for, I would say, over 30 years in mathematical equations. What is it like to begin to have your papers published in peer-reviewed magazines? What is it like to be recognized by the conscious community and all of these beautiful places, your movie being released? What's that like for you?
It's amazing. It's like a dream come true. It's like, you know, for all these years, you can visualize that one day, hopefully, before you're 6 foot under, the larger community of the world will, catch on to what you're doing. And it's a long journey. There's a lot of ups, but there's a lot of downs as well. And sometimes you're kind of, picking yourself off the ground and, keep putting a foot in front of the other. So these moments really kind of brings it home that, between the recognition that's occurring from the result of the movie, The Connected Universe, and, having Patrick Stewart narrate it, and receiving awards, and, people yesterday were so sweet, and it's amazing the reaction that we're getting and the transformation that's occurring as a result. And that makes it like every bit of difficulties just get washed away because it just even the change for one life, the change that happens. I get hundreds of letters from people telling me that it's completely changing their view of the world and themselves and the universe and so on. And it's so heart warming, and it makes it all worth it.
So, miracle makers, do what you love, explore the universe, and as you're exploring the universe and your joy becoming more and more practiced, the recognition comes in, and it's the recognition in letters as well as the recognition in awards are so meaningful.
They keep you going, but at the end of the day, that's not why you're doing it. Why you're doing it is so that you have a positive impact on humanity, whatever that can be. And it might just be you transforming. That is the positive impact, and that's significant.
That's
right there.
Huge.
Yeah.
The universe within you is projecting out and creating what's out here, and so the more connected you become within yourself,
the more you can impact change outside yourself.
The more you can impact change, like Gandhi says, it's not so much about remaking out there, it's about how we remake ourselves.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yes.
And then your friends and families, they notice. They go, oh, what's going on?
This is such a great point, because I think people get stuck on, they want to contribute on a bigger level, which you have to navigate into that. But you have to know that today you can make a big impact by shifting your inner world. So I'm so glad you brought that up. That's so important.
It's so critical.
Yeah, so critical.
And we're talking about it loosely in philosophy. But what's
I'm going to give you both your hands back.
I'm Italian, I got
you gotta talk with
talk with my hands.
Yes.
But it's actually in the equations that I'm writing, meaning that the equations I'm writing are saying something profound about the universe. That is that it's holographically imprinted in every atom, that every atom is a little holographic world that has all the information of all the other atoms in the universe in it. And so that actually by going inwards into your atomic structure, into your physical body, but bringing your attention that way, which we rarely do. We commonly have our attention everywhere else. Then when we do that, we kind of access, the universe. We access the information,
wisdom, the infinite wisdom.
Right.
I think it was Jamie Hanover that put together a video of one of your talks where the heliocentric universe moving at 70,000 kilometers throughout it's a vortex that's created.
Right.
And when we are looking out there, we can see the speed in which it's traveling. When we go within and we focus our attention, like you're saying, on the atomic, on what we have awareness of within us, we begin to move at that speed within us. And I think the further out we look, the less free will we have, the deeper in we look, the more access to our free will we have. Because no matter what, we're on this planet, rotating, moving through this space, doing this cosmic dance in the vortex. And so it's so beautiful.
Well,
I want you to speak as much as possible because I have a tendency to talk a lot. And
that's all good.
I want to hear how you go deeper within. Every process that you're doing, it has equations to it that you come from, and you've been following all the different things that you've been curious about and interested in, and it keeps bringing you back to the connected universe of this large particles and small particles.
It's kind of strange, that path that I was taken on. Meaning that many things I understand mathematically now, I heuristically came up with when I was very young. So that is like instinctively, from logic, from observation, I came to very specific conclusion, but I didn't have mathematical proof or formalism to express it until actually the last 5 to 6 years, where I solved many of the equations I had been working on for some 30 years. And when I solved these equations, I was, of course, thinking maybe it will lead to the same conclusion mathematically, or maybe not, And I thought, well, if it leads to the same conclusions, like that the universe is holographic, for example, or that everything, is connected in one system, or everything is one, and all these concepts we have in spiritual knowledge. I thought, well, if it does show this, it's probably not going to be so clearly, or it'll be a little sinuous, or it won't. I didn't think it was going to come out like impeccable, meaning like it came out unbelievable impeccable, like with huge amount of accuracy, like in because the formulas are predicting very fundamental constants, like the and fundamental values in physics, like the mass of a proton, right? Which is the mass of atoms, and the mass of the electron, and all this. It's more accurate than the standard model by an order of magnitude, right? And that's a lot to say, because the standard model has some 21 free parameters to make that happen. In this case, there's no free parameters. There's no fudge factor. It's just straight up, in fact, fairly simple mathematics, algebra and geometry. And it comes out with these amazing results. But when it does,
Yes.
it does it with crazy amount of accuracy from really insane numbers. So like imagine you have an equation that has the mass of the universe in it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not a small number; it's a large number, right?
Right.
And it's actually 10 to 55 grams is like 10 with like 55 zeros, right? So
Yes.
it's a lot,
huge,
right? Yeah,
yes.
it's a large number, right?
Right.
And when you're done with the equation, which is a simple ratio
Yes.
relationship, you output the mass of one proton
Yes.
in the universe, right? Which is 10 to the minus 24 grams, which is
Yes.
which is a period with 24 zeros. It's a very, very small number. So like, and it outputs it like super clean, super precisely. So the probabilities of that happening, is
tiny.
very
Tiny for it to show up this way.
That's right.
And as a child, you had this, and then later on through science and numbers, you found it and proved it again.
Right.
Which is amazing. And that level of space within a proton means that like a small cubic space that has so many protons in it has so much energy in it.
That's right.
And
Massive amount of energy.
massive amount of energy. And it's not this massive amount of energy, this massive math and science was always present.
Right.
And there are no parameters that have been put into place to prove it. It's with pure numbers and pure.
There's no free parameters, meaning I'm not adding any fudge factor to make it come out right, or
Right,
which the standard model does all the time.
Right.
In my case, it's straight up, no fudge factor. It just comes out.
And this is in peer-reviewed, published articles now.
Yes, and then just recently I published another paper in biophysics.
Yes.
It's my first paper in biophysics. I'm really excited.
Oh, that's so exciting.
It was published at the Journal of Neuroquantology.
Yeah.
And in this case, I applied this understanding of physics into biology and the source of consciousness. And so it says something really deep as well, where consciousness lies and how we are able to have this experience.
So where consciousness exists and how we're able to harness consciousness, how would you answer that?
So we in the paper show first of all that there must be feedback in the universe, because otherwise there wouldn't be organized systems. Meaning, if you think like the standard model that the universe is random and everything happens on the random function, right, and everything actually came together just by chance, then you can calculate how possible that is.
Yes.
So we calculated for the nucleons, the base pairs to like create just the most simple cellular life, not like complex system like a human being with 100 trillion cells. Monocellular organism.
Yes.
Like the most simple thing.
Yes.
Right. We calculated the probability of that happening by chance.
Yes.
Right. And the probability is 1 to 1 to 1 to 10 to the 8,896, but don't quote me, might be 94 or whatever. I mean, at that point, forget how many, a few zeros won't matter. But I tell you,
infinitely large at this, not infinitely,
that is
but it's
the
large
number. Like that's the largest number I've ever calculated in physics ever. To give the viewers an idea of how big that is, like the universe is big, right?
Right.
The galaxies are huge. Our sun in our galaxy doesn't even show up. Like if you're
Yes.
looking at the galaxy, you wouldn't see our sun.
Yes.
It's too small, right?
Right.
And so, and the Earth is a grain of sand beside the sun.
Yes.
So galaxies are huge. There's billions and billions and billions of galaxies in our universe. So
Yes.
universe is big,
Yes.
right? The radius of our universe in centimeters are small,
Yes.
is 10 to the 28 centimeters.
Yes.
Okay, so 10 to the 28 is a huge number.
It's a huge
right.
number.
So
Yes.
like 10 to the 8,000 something is like
Wow.
Yeah.
But so the probability of life showing up is
By random.
random is so minute.
Minute. But in general, the
And-
physics community doesn't address that.
Yes.
Because there's no life in physics.
Yes.
Like in Einstein's equation or in quantum
Right.
physics, there's no life involved. There's no biology. There's
Yes.
like everything is supposed to just be random.
Static.
Yeah,
It's all
Ben.
static.
It's all random.
Yes, and it's all based on non-movement.
Right.
Right.
In general.
In general.
But basically, if you actually, so how did life come about?
Yes.
So the reason why the scientific community tends to ignore this problem is because the tendency would be, they're afraid that then the tendency is to go into religion and say,
Yes.
oh, well, there's a God that's making this happen. And
Yes.
it's ordering creation into
It
everything.
involves a belief system,
Right.
possibly, and to negate a belief system is to negate an agreement, unspoken sometimes.
Well,
Agreement.
they're afraid to
Yes.
have that come into science.
Yes.
Since the division between science and religion, they're trying to keep away from anything religious.
Yes.
And for good reason. But there's another option,
Yes.
okay, other than saying God is doing it.
Yes.
And that option is that there's feedback. So we give an example actually in the connected universe. We do the calculation,
Yes.
and so that people can see it, and it's done with beautiful animation, so it's fun. But if you give a Rubik's cube to a
Yes.
blind person, right, and you ask them to order it,
Yes.
the blind person doesn't know if they're getting closer or further from the solution,
Yes.
right? So if they if they make a move every second, you can calculate how long it would take the blind person to go through all the possibilities without repeating them, to try to order it by chance.
Yes.
And a Rubik's cube is way less complex than a human being
Or
with 100
cell
billion.
biology,
Yeah, or
yes.
cell biology or anything. And so you calculate that, and the result is like some 10 to the 18 probability. So it takes, if they're moving a move every
Yes.
second, it takes longer than the age of the universe by billion and billions of years for somebody to solve a Rubik's cube
Yes.
by chance, right?
Right.
It's most likely not gonna happen, right?
Right.
But if you tell them yes or no every time they make a move, yes, you're getting closer, no, you're getting further, then if they make a move every second, within 2.5 minutes, the
Yes.
Rubik's cube is solved. So that's just because there's feedback.
Yes.
Well, you see feedback in nature all the time. That should tell you something about the universe.
Yes.
Meaning, animals adapt to their environment because they're getting feedback from the
Yes.
environment. So when I wrote these equations, I wrote these equations with the concept that there's information that there's information inside the system, inside the little proton, and there's information outside of the little proton, and there's a
Yes.
boundary between the two, and the boundary exchange the information so that there's feedback.
Happening. And would you put your hand up just for a second and push against mine? This is feedback.
That is feedback.
This is feedback.
Right.
This is the boundary. That's
Right.
so incredible.
Yeah,
That where there's resistance and there is energy being put in. That's part of
There's an exchange of
there's
energy.
an exchange of energy. And
That's
if you begin to view everything as feedback,
Right.
it becomes so much easier to have multiple conversations with the anatomy that's within you and the universe, the connected universe
Right.
outside of you.
That's right.
And I'd love for you to talk about a little bit about the light and the movement in the paper that you're writing about, and the feedback and how life is created with light.
Right. So basically, if you have feedback, you can.
Yes.
These little bits of information that I
Yes.
use to solve this equation, they're little electromagnetic. You could think of them as light, right? They're
Right.
little electromagnetic photons that are really teeny. They're at the Planck scale, right? They're
Yes.
billions of times smaller than an atom. Right, and the bits of information are coming in and they're going back out, and coming in and going back out, and basically, I applied the same concept all the way up the scale to a human being.
Yes.
And so it gives a model for how consciousness happens. That consciousness is not actually an epiphenomenon of your brain that's
Yes.
happening inside your skull, but that your brain and your body, your whole body, is like an antenna receiving information from that
Yes.
field and sending information into that field, so
Yeah.
that you're actually participating in the world that you are experiencing.
So, in other words, you are creating that reality as you're experiencing it.
That's
you are
right.
both the sender and the receiver
That's right.
antenna, and you're sending and receiving in light as well.
Right, in photon, and the photons are actually occurring in the microtubule structure of the
Yes.
cytoskeleton of the cells. So actually, the cell with the water structure and all
Yes.
this is emitting into the Planck field, into the quantum field, the information
Yes.
of, your interpretation of the field, and then the field is reacting and sending you back the experience.
Yes.
And the experience that come back to you is not exactly what necessarily you intended.
Yes.
Because it's being modified by all the rest of the people that are feeding into the same field.
Field.
We're all connected.
Yes.
So because what comes back is not necessarily exactly what you intended, you are learning.
Yes.
And that's why you grow. That's why you evolve.
Yes. And so I want to break that down just a little bit. When you have a worry and you put sensation to that worry, a smell, a thought, energy, emotion, then you're projecting into this field, and whoever, whatever you're worrying about is having and being affected by that. When you put out the best possible imagery and best possible sensations around a field, the energy of something beautiful occurring in your experience, and you put your senses into that, you're affecting the field to co-create with you that
That's right. Exactly.
energy.
Yeah.
And I have a question for you, because you're a father. You have beautiful children.
Oh, thank you.
And they're creating their field. You as a father are visioning for them, co-creating their field.
Right.
Their mother as well in this
Yes.
process, co-creating.
Yes.
So give us an example of something where the feedback and the light and the experience comes in to show this in your everyday life.
Oh, in my everyday life, I would say, I mean, in so many different ways, it's amazing with children. There's something that I learned from having children that I think I could have never learned without these experiences. And that is that, when my children are behaving in a difficult way,
Yes.
usually if I look carefully inside of me, I'm feeling anxious, I have some worries about something, I'm stressed out, whatever, there's
Yes.
something going on. And my kids are like because they're so pure,
Yes.
especially when they're young,
Yes.
that like it's like an instant reflection of what's going on with me
Yes.
inside. I just noticed it over the years, like, oh wow,
Yeah.
why am I having so much difficulty with them? And it's like, well, I've got all this stuff at the office, and I'm
Yes.
stressed out about this and all this stuff, and look, this is what they're
That's
sending back
experiencing.
to me, right?
Right.
And then as soon as I shift that, then I see my kids just all of a sudden they start having a good time with each other, and they stop punching each other, and
Yes.
it's like, because I have two boys,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
and
Thank
boys.
you for that great example, especially with our children. And our children come into this field with information that's different from when we came into
That's
this
right.
field.
Right.
And what they experience is so important for us to listen to and really be mindful to clean up our space,
Right.
our ideas, our projections, what we're anticipating.
Right.
It's so important in their field to have that experience. And the connection that you're having here, meaning the more now so many people are looking to you, they're watching your movies, learning this, they're writing you letters. So in this great field that you're part of and holding this space for this information, the being birthed through, what are you experiencing? Because there is a feedback going back and forth. As you grow, are you feeling, are you seeing dark and light responses on both ends? Are both of those growing in your experience as well?
No, as I grow, I'm seeing more good responses and less negative response.
And is that because you're holding your field connected in a different way?
Yeah, I think one thing is that, I think internally for me, I am internally not fighting as much as I used to. If you expect the fight, then
Yes.
there's a good chance there will be a fight. So if you can resolve that inside of you, I think, then the reflection that comes back to you is a little different. But as well, I think that the world is changing rapidly.
Yes.
And as a result of all the people that are doing their work and that are feeding that into the field, the mainstream community of the world is not so mainstream anymore, meaning like they're starting to consider ideas that they would have never considered before. I mean, look at how many people do yoga now.
Yes.
I mean, 30 years ago, when you talked about yoga, people would look like, oh yeah, it must be like some kind of hippie. Now you have like literally like
in schools,
yes, everywhere,
in
like,
prisons, on television, everywhere you go.
Like politicians are doing
Yes.
yoga and so on. So. But yoga is a very esoteric practice from the Eastern, tradition.
Yes.
And so on. So, the world is changing, and the world is becoming more capable of accepting new ideas. I think like plasticity is increasing.
Plasticity in your brain, the
Yes.
ability to grow new skill sets, and the ability to show up as needed in an environment is part of the plasticity when you're fully connected.
That's right. And so people are able to accept or at least consider new things. They might not even accept them, but at least they'll consider them before rejecting them offhand. And of course, that's not everybody, but there's definitely, I think, a fundamental change, like for a large population of the world that's occurring. I think people feel this great transformation happening, and they realize, I don't want to be left behind.
Yes.
I like, wait a minute, I got to get on this bandwagon. Everybody's going that way.
Yes.
Well, actually, what I see is, kids are waking up and then they're demanding that their parents
That's
change
right.
for them to
Yes.
accommodate what they are seeing, what they're understanding. So,
I agree.
Yeah.
And a lot of the positive response I'm getting from the institutions now. And I work with physicists all around the world, and many of them are not able to publicly, endorse my work, because if they do, they would lose tenure, they would lose, confidence of their peers and so on. But the reason why so many physicists are starting to warm up to my work is because the students are showing up in their class, and the students, they don't have any invested interest.
Yes.
Yeah.
They just want the truth, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
they show up with papers of mine and they go, what's wrong with this, right? And they demand,
Yes.
answers,
Yeah.
right? And so it's making a change. It's so the youth,
Yeah.
of course, is going to lead the change.
Yeah.
When we told friends that we were interviewing you, our miracle makers, when we told them, they had questions for you, which was
Oh.
so fun. There are these telescopes that have gone out and are sending pictures back. And part of it was we're this heliocentric or geocentric. They're going to send out another telescope, and I don't know the organization that they were talking about, because the feedback that they're getting in this imagery is that there are multiple universes. And the geocentric versus the heliocentric, and I'm not sure what model they were referring to. And so I went on to just ask them, and they said what it shows is a theory about multiple universes.
Right.
And if you could speak about that a
there's-
little bit.
There's starting to have more and more support that we might not be the only universe around. Now, for some people that might be surprising, but if you look in history,
Yes.
we literally early on thought that we were the only planet,
Yes.
right?
Right. Everything rotated day, night.
And that we were the only planet. Actually, the other planets in our solar system, we could see them, but we
Yes.
thought they were stars. And so we thought we were the only planet. Then, shortly thereafter, we realized, oh no, there's other planets.
Yes.
And, and here's our sun. So they figured that out, but they still thought the Earth was in the center of all that. And then they realized, no, the sun is the center, and we're
Yes.
spinning around it. And then we were convinced we were the only, galaxy. We
Yeah.
realized, well, we thought we were the only solar system. The
Yeah.
rest was all stars. Then, we
Yes.
saw that there was probably other solar system, but we realized we were part of a structure that we called the galaxy eventually. And then we were sure we were the only galaxy, right?
Yes.
And and then we realized, whoa, there's billions of galaxies. In fact, when we look in the darkest place we can find in the sky with a good telescope, it's full of galaxies, right? And so it's and so the idea that we were just one puff, Big Bang idea,
Yes.
that we just one, out of nothing, then puff, and then there's a universe, never sat well with me. Of
Yeah.
course, we're not the only universe,
Or
of course.
dimensions.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah, the dimensions. We speak now moving into dimensions, multiple dimensions within this universe.
Right. That's a little bit more complex story, because dimensions is a very difficult terminology to deal with, because the interpretation in mathematics and physics
Yes.
is vastly different than the interpretation of the spiritual people.
Yes.
When the spiritual people think of a dimension,
Yes.
they are thinking of a whole world with people in it that
Yeah.
lives in some parallel
Yeah.
dimension, or that we're not aware of, or the
Yeah.
spirit world, whatever they want to call it. They're thinking of something vastly
Way
different than the physicist. The
Yeah.
physicist, when he says another dimension, or he or she
Yeah.
says another dimension, they're talking another Cartesian plane or vector in space, right? They're
way
not
to measure.
Yeah.
Right. Another way that you can measure what's occurring.
space.
Space,
Yeah.
yes.
So it's a completely different view. So it gets
Yes.
really confusing.
Yeah.
Okay, so people will say, do you think there's other dimensions? And it's like, it depends what you mean by
Yes.
dimensions. I actually don't believe in dimensions at all in terms of the mathematical formalism that has been the fundamental axioms of dimensions that are in mathematics. And I think it's actually tripping physics out. Because, for instance, in the holographic principle in
Yes.
physics, this is a standard principle of physics where information that falls on a black hole is holographically imprinted on the surface. They solve these equations using a surface that's, in their equation, two-dimensional, as if there is such a thing in the universe.
Yes.
There is no two-dimensional planes in the universe.
Yes.
There's no two-dimensional surface. There's nothing that has zero volume,
Yes.
right? Like, so of course, and then they extrapolate because the equation works out. Oh, are we living in a three-dimensional universe that's a projection from a two-dimensional surface? No, of course not. That is your math
Yes.
you're using. That is
Yes.
not the reality of what the universe is doing. So what happens is that physicists and mathematicians use models to try to understand the universe, and then they forget they've used a model that's
Yes.
artificial. And then they
and-
apply it to the universe as if the universe was making
Yeah.
two-dimensional holographic surfaces.
So they use the language that's available to make real what is not real
Right.
in the first place. And then they forget. So, and I see that as part of our left brain. Our left brain only speaks in languages, and our right brain has access to all energy and all of the
Images.
all images, all information. But the left brain, unless it can label that image, will not accept it. And it will make up things in order to make on purpose or to rationalize
Right.
what's happening in the right brain.
Right, right.
So the feedback system, I think, falls back onto this as well.
Right.
Our ability to understand what's happening falls within the language that we have fully accepted
Right.
as possible. And when we are bringing in higher concepts, we have to either release the language that we've utilized and create a new language, or broaden the way in which the language is used to bring in the variables that are now being brought in an energy format. For example, photons, what we thought they were before, now that we have so much more information on it, we actually shared this is what they are.
Right.
Bio-life, the energy of life, the energy of light. Now that we're really getting, this is all light moving in waves, and it stops when there is feedback and connection to it. And expectation creates this amazing result, and we then have to put language around it. Once we wrap language around it, we have to give it meaning. When we give meaning into it, we then are producing feeling and sensations, and sometimes the feeling and sensations are the ones that are projecting out the meaning in the feedback loop.
Yeah, this is a big problem in science, for instance. So for instance, that used to trip me out all the time when I was younger as well, because I would try to express something in physics using the terminology that's accepted in physics.
Yes.
But I was trying to express something that is completely different than what was the paradigm of physics of the time, with the language that's inside that paradigm. And so it created a lot of confusion.
Yes.
right? And it still does. So for instance, I had to coin new words. So for instance, I coined the word black hole, WHOLE,
Yeah.
to distinguish what I was describing from the current concepts of black hole.
Yes.
Because the current concepts of black hole is that it just swallows everything that's around it.
Yes.
Right? And my mathematics and my equations show it doesn't. It actually is spinning way too fast to do that, and things are being flung out.
Yes.
And so there's an exchange between what's coming out and what's coming in, and that exchange is that feedback I was talking about. So then I called it black hole. You know, it's not a hole in space where everything is falling in. It's a hole because it is
that loop. It's the wholeness of it. It receives all the colors. All the colors make black.
Right.
And then also it reflects
the rainbow.
All the rainbow coming out to be expressed fully in all the different senses and all the different ways that we can measure it.
Yeah, I mean, we find black holes in the center of all galaxies, right?
Yes.
So if they were swallowing everything around them, how is the galaxy even there?
Yes.
Right? The center black hole should have sucked it all in by now.
Yes.
So, of course, it's not that simple.
Yeah.
But in general, you know, that's where language just becomes so critical, because you label something, and then you've put it in a box.
Yes.
And if you know, and then it's really hard to expand on it because it's in that box, and it, you know, you're having, and then when you're communicating, you say that word, you say that thing, and then people visualize the box right away, and now you're back in the box. You can't get out of it. You know, so it's tricky.
It is. So I love what you're sharing there, and I wonder if, because I know you're going to Egypt. We take a group to Egypt every year because we feel it's so important to see the symbols and the walls, and to experience being inside the pyramid and being at the foot of the Sphinx, and these amazing, to be on the Nile, and to awaken the living ancient mystery within ourselves.
Right.
To have our feedback going to that environment, and that environment's feedback coming into us. Do you feel symbols are really important? I'd love for you to talk about symbols, because I know you studied that for an extensive period of time as well.
Yeah, I think they're critical, actually. I would have loved for language to stay in an hieroglyphic form.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very dyslexic.
Yes.
I think a lot of people are dyslexic because I think people tend to think in images.
Yes.
And the way we write without hieroglyphs is by combining, you know, like fragments to make a whole, where you could just make the whole, like the hieroglyph. You know, I mean, horse.
Yes.
You draw a horse, right?
You
know what I'm saying? Then you get a horse. You know, there's no dyslexia possible, right? Because you're looking at a little horse, right? So I think I believe that actually it was a higher communication tool.
Yes.
And then in those
hieroglyphs are higher communication. The symbols are higher communication forms than words.
Than the fragmentation of the letters that make up words, right? Because now you got each one is a sound that you have to put together and then to get a meaning out of it. But you get much more meaning from a picture. You know, like a picture is worth 1,000 words. There's reason people say that, right? So it's the same, I think, at that level. But as well, many of the ancient symbology have to do with fundamental principles of science, of physics, of the universe, of the functioning of the universe.
Yes.
And so they inform us when we see them, even if we don't consciously get it. Right?
Yes.
We might look at this symbol and go, wow, it's so amazing and intricate and you know all of this, but we don't know what it means. But something inside of us
Yes.
is getting it, you know?
So that dormant seed that's within us that is connected to what's on the walls, what's connected in that experience, the holographic universe within us
is recognizing
that, which is out on the walls.
Right,
and so
right.
you're taking people in October
Yeah.
to Egypt. Why do you think it's so
This
important?
is still a big secret, but
Oh,
it
I
just got
just
out.
revealed.
Yes, it's all
Breaking
good.
news.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in October, we have a Resonance Science Academy.
Yes.
And some 70 different countries are participating.
Yes.
We have some 5,000 people have gone through the course. So this is a course on the fundamental physics that are occurring, the change.
And it's so simple. It starts with a dot into two dots into geometric shapes into it's. I'm so grateful. I love math and I'm dyslexic, and I received so much from that course. It's so beautiful that it can be understood, and it's a lot of materials with images
Right.
to help you fully engage in the understanding, not just on a word mathematical equation level, but on the symbols and what it means for your life level.
Yeah, I'm so excited. People, I mean, the reviews we're getting from the course is amazing. People, you know, not only appreciate the information, but it's transforming their life at a really deep level to go through the course, which in general takes about 12 weeks for people to go through. There's 6 modules, and you know, and my 10-year-old took it, and there's people in their 80s that took it. You know, so it's not like you got to be a physicist to take the course, and but as well, people are getting transformed from the community that they're linking into, because every month, you know, the whole academy, all the students get together on the internet and they can ask me questions. And so 2 hours I spend with all the students answering questions and discussing things for every month. But as well, we have breakout groups so that everybody can connect in all the countries. And so you kind of link into a global community of people that are on the same wavelength.
Yes.
And so you're not isolated so much anymore. You know, for people, there's many people in many countries where, you know, it's not necessarily all West Coast California mentality out there, right?
Right.
You know, and it's really awesome for them to be able to connect with the rest of the people. They feel like a fish out of water in their community in many cases. And so people are able to connect that way. And now we're going to do a yearly program where people can come and be with me in sacred sites around the world. And you know,
wow, that just like lit me up. Wow, that was amazing.
So it will be, you know, and I have surprises in terms of technology for people, you know, that will connect them at even deeper levels. And so we're really excited. We're opening it to about 256 people this first time, and we're in the middle of organizing for Egypt. And you know, if it fills up really quick, we'll expand it to 512 people.
Fibonacci numbers.
we're gonna really move. You know, like, you know, it's more than just us all getting together. It's like, you know, it's us like going on a mission. You know, and
this is my belief, and I know we've only got a few more minutes. My belief is that it's been foretold by the ancient ones that rainbow warriors get together and there's 1,000 years of peace on Earth. These are ancient wise people in multiple native lands that have, in their own way, shared that. And I believe the chakra systems is the living rainbow within us, the chakra system. And when enough of us is awakened in the chakra rainbow warrior tribe, there's 1,000 years of peace in the system. So I would say over 1,000 years ago, Mayan elders, European elders, native elders from here, Aborigines, all talk about, in their own language, a rainbow tribe.
Right.
And most people think it's various races getting together, but I believe various races and initiated in the chakra system.
Right.
Which in the ancient walls, it shows how the chakras, how to do brain surgery without any tools or anesthesia. And they show people living and being well, and there's records of that. And so that's part of what you're sharing right there. I just jumped in because it's that the inner reflection growing to the outer reflection, that rainbow peace in here.
Right. So it really is, connecting at a really deep level with the community, but as well, going on
these
amazing journeys together.
To initiate the chakras.
And to connect the pieces so that, so that together we can increase the energy, exponential.
Yes.
And create a huge pulse in the morphogenetic field, in the field that we're feeding into, a pulse of transformation. And so we're asking people to come on this amazing journey with us and contribute that way. And I'm super excited about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us at Miracle Makers on UBN at Conscious Life Expo, and thank you for all the amazing work you're doing. We are excited.
Our hero, our superhero.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're so
Thank
welcome.
you, Miracle Makers, for joining us.